What's up, Facebook? Happy Friday evening, and coming to you live from Vero Beach, Florida. It is Friday night. I know many people are probably not tuning in, but they're out there having fun on a Friday night. And I have a 30-day challenge for anyone that wants to participate and join me in a 30-day challenge. And this challenge, for those of you that accept the challenge, at the end could have more peace, more happiness, more serenity. And this challenge comes from a decision that Yvette and I made many years ago. And it was coming out of a book that I read. What's up, guys? How are you? Good to see you. Thank you for jumping on. It came out of a book I read called The Power of Focus. And what's up, Debbie Eason? How are you? Miss Unshakable in the house. And in The Power of Focus, it was talking about Jack Canfield, who was very obviously up and coming. He was young in the younger years. He actually went in for an interview with Buckminster Fuller. At the time, Buckminster Fuller was a very successful in the insurance business, and he started teaching people success principles. And Buckminster Fuller asked Jack Canfield, he went in for an interview, Jack Canfield did, to work for Buckminster, and he asked him, he said, "How many hours of television do you watch?" And Jack didn't really know. He says, "I don't know, maybe 2 to 3 hours a day. I don't really know." He said, "Did you know that the average American watches 8 hours of television every single day?" And a lot of them binge. They add more hours on the weekends because they binge watch stuff throughout the weekend, and so it averages out to 8 hours. He said, if you were to take those 8 hours and put that towards something more successful, something more empowering, rather than just watching television, you would actually, if you multiplied that, just half of that, 4 hours a day for a week times 365 days a year, and you were to multiply that, do you know how many hours you would have for the entire year? That's almost 90 days of free time. So many hours you would have of free time. What would you do with that time? And so Jack said, well, what should I do with that extra time if I stop watching several hours of television a day? And he said, well, think of something that could be productive. Maybe learn a new language, maybe learn a new skill, maybe start a part-time business. With that time you would be sitting there watching television, especially watching the news. And for when I was a LAPD officer, my last assignment was working for the chief's office of the LAPD, and that was Chief Bratton at the time. And I was in charge of community relations and working with specifically the Latino community and being a pulse for what's happening in the community. And a part of what I had to do was know what's happening in the city. So in my mind, I wanted to be the best community service officer as possible, to be out there on the streets and seeing what's happening in the community. So I thought it was important every night to watch the nightly news. And the nightly news in LA was pretty similar, the same thing every single day. It was just bad things happening to bad people. And so before I went to sleep, that was the last thing that I would watch. The 10 o'clock nightly news. I'll never forget it. Every channel I'd go through to see what was important, what was relevant for the city of Los Angeles. And every single time, it was just bad things happening to different people. So I'd go to sleep, and every morning I'd wake up. I was very depressed, and I had no idea why I would wake up being depressed. How many of you, honestly, if you were to be honest, what's your favorite news channel? Put it in a comment feature. What's the source that you rely on, that you go to, that you believe as being true, or that you say, hey, this is the source that I go to? NBC, ABC, CNN, Fox, whatever it is. Put it in a chat feature. I'd like to know what is your source of news. And my source was all of them. And so I would go to sleep, wake up in the morning, being depressed, upset, sad, and having no idea why I was such in a bad mood. And then everything that would happen through the day would put me in a worse mood. I'd come home depressed, sad, angry, anxiety. The Daily Wire. I see you, Debbie. Thank you for commenting. I appreciate you. And what I realized later on is that every single conversation everything we see, everything we watch, it actually has an imprint on our mind. And so we as human beings really need, I would suggest, we should be very, very conscious of what information comes into our minds, from the conversations that we have with people to the information, to the things that we watch, the things that we listen to, from news to radio to all, even movies and television shows. They're all very impactful to us as human beings. And so when I started learning about this, I decided that, you know what? Okay, Buckmeister Fuller, this is how many hours extra we'd have. So I decided to get rid of our television. This was back, I can't even remember how many years ago, almost over 12 years ago. I decided to get rid of the television. I said, well, that makes sense. And I want to collapse time frames. I want to have more success faster. So if I could reduce my television time by 100%, then maybe I can use that time to be more productive. So we had one TV at the house at the time. Yvette and I were living in Playa Vista, California, and I actually gave her television away. I gave it to my uncle, and I took the cable box that we had and I returned it to the cable service company. And when Yvette came home that night, because one of the success tips I would share that has helped us to have more success is I'm a person of action. When something makes sense to me, I decide to take action right away. I don't wait on it. I just take action. Sometimes it serves, sometimes it doesn't. I haven't always made the right decision, but for me, it's always taking action, making a decision. And if I made the wrong decision, then to course correct. But I gave away the television and I turned back the cable box. And when Yvette came home, she came home and she thought we got robbed. She's like, "Where did our television go?" Because we had this routine of watching television before we would go to sleep. "Where did our television go? Did we get robbed? What happened? Did we need to call the police?" And I explained to her that I gave it away. She thought I was crazy. But I shared with her what I thought would help us to speed up our ability to have success was to get rid of the television and especially stop watching the news and listening to the radio. And so she agreed. Thankfully, I have a beautiful wife that trusts me, and we agreed to go on this path. And that was, again, I think it was over 12 years ago. And because of that decision, we were able to free our minds from being directed into all the negative things that's happening out in the world. I mean, yes, we need to be aware of what's happening, but do we need to be consumed with it? Absolutely not. And so, my challenge to all of you is to, you don't have to give away your television or to give away your cable box, but my challenge to each of you just for the next 30 days is to stop watching the news. Stop listening to radio. Maybe turn your TV off and have empowering conversations just for the next 30 days. If something major happens, I promise you, I told all my friends and family, if something massive happens, give me a call, send me a text, let me know. Because sometimes we get fearful of, oh, I don't know what's going to be happening in the world. Trust me, it'll come to you. But for the next 30 days, I challenge you. Put it in the comment section. Challenge accepted. For those of you that want to join me in this challenge, just for the next 30 days, to eliminate the news, to eliminate the radio, all that toxic stuff that happens on the news and the radio, just for the next 30 days, tune that out. Tune that out. Do something more empowering. Well, what could you do with those extra hours or minutes that you would have extra? Well, maybe you could learn a new language. Maybe you could learn a new sport. Hashtag pickleball. Maybe you could, okay, I see you, Debbie. Thank you for accepting the challenge. I see you, Ron. Thank you for jumping on. He says, Ron says, Wayne Dyer used to say that when you watch the news and when the commercials came in, it was all about the latest antidepressants. Wow. Made sense to me. I stopped watching the news. It's so true. They're selling to you all kinds of stuff that you probably don't need, but it's a great way of infiltrating our minds. It's kind of like having a cup of coffee, and if you saw somebody put arsenic in your coffee, would you drink it? Absolutely not. Of course we wouldn't. But why do we entertain poisonous conversations? People that are non-believers, this negativity, or always talking about what we can't do. Especially for those of you that maybe have a business that you're building. Sometimes you want to reach out to your friends and family, and what I've realized is sometimes friends and family, they're not bad people, but sometimes they could become dream stealers if we allow them to steal our dreams. But a lot of times it's not because they're doing it intentionally. Here's what happens: when you have an opportunity and you have something that you see that can empower and change your life for the good, and you share it with somebody that you know and love, what it forces them to do is it forces them to look in the mirror. And when they're looking in the mirror, they got two choices. They got one choice: they can go and step up, learn a new skill, get uncomfortable, maybe challenge some of their beliefs, maybe face some of their fears of what's been holding them back in order to have success. That's what a lot of times they have to do in order to have success in different businesses that are available out there. Or the other option is they can tear you down and they can tell you it's not going to work and how stupid you are for trying something new. What do you think is the easiest thing to do? It's easier to tear somebody's dream down than it is to build their own. It's kind of like Nancy Kerrigan, if you remember back in the day, what happened? Tanya Harding for those of you that are old enough to remember the Olympics. So what I encourage you, thank you, Debbie, for taking on the challenge. I encourage you to do just for the next 30 days. After 30 days, you can go back to it. But if you want more peace, more happiness, more joy, maybe more fulfillment, even more success, for the next 30 days, I encourage you to give up the news. Give up the propaganda. Davey Lowe signing out. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock.